Rhea down is more, lots more.
Folks, welcome back to the show where it is not wrestling with your conscience. It is not wrestling with your budget. It is wrestling with emotion. And my goodness, we finally have a moment to breathe after the craziness that has been the last 100 hours across the landscape of wrestling. So let's get them all in here. We got the Prophet, Rob Ryan. We got the head of the table of the Wrestling with Emotion, Michael Partham. And we have a man who's in Jade Cargill's entrance, according to him, because the storm is coming. Ali out in Basha and Rochester. Ali, let's check in. How we doing, sir?
It is raining like crazy. I feel like it is the middle of Jade Cargill's entrance. The storm is truly here. I got a loud restaurant behind me. Otherwise, I'd be in the warm, nice area. But thankfully, I'm still here to wrestle with emotion.
Seriously, thank you for tuning in. And obviously, stay as dry as you can. But there has been no avoiding the awesomeness that has been wrestling the last 100 hours, like I said. So let's go around the horn. Ali, we'll bring you back in a second. Prophet, start us off. Now that we have a second to breathe, what stuck out to you the most these last couple days?
Well, I think it has to be NXT. I mean, the Sunday they put on Heat Wave. The matches, I mean, they were almost every single one was 5 stars to me. I think Money in the Bank was good, but I think NXT Heat Wave was 5 times better. And then even going into last night, I know we'll talk about it, but I believe.
Well, I would say Rhea Ripley's return. It's getting all sorts of social media views, YouTube, Twitter, and former Twitter and all that stuff. You heard the pop from the crowd. This has been much anticipated throughout the entire summer. The storyline has been furthered along without her presence, and everybody's just been anticipating for her to get back. We'll talk about Rhea's return and what that means for the Judgment Day later on, but I think that's right now the hottest thing going on.
I gotta say, Money in the Bank was amazing, except for, God, so many botches. It was like Botchamania could have just made an entire video on Money in the Bank. I unfortunately was not able to tune into Heatwave, but then we got a pretty good episode of Raw with the topic that everyone's talking about. Rhea frickin' Ripley, mommy is back, and she's pissed. She did not look happy with Dom. She looked angry.
And it's crazy in a landscape of all these great wrestling events, all these great promotions, that Joe Hendry is sticking out as much as he has. Rob's guy. He's getting the closing shot on the NXT pay-per-view, and he's main eventing an NXT event. So a lot happening very quickly for Mr. Hendry. But speaking of a lot happening very quickly, Money in the Bank on Saturday. Obviously, there are a couple of holes that people are poking in. A lot of people aren't happy that the men's Money in the Bank briefcase won't be out there, even though Partham, I know you'll get to your point about Cody and wanting to maintain it on Gunther. The other thing I'm seeing out there is that there's a lot of talk about only an hour and 30-ish minutes of wrestling on nearly a 3 hour and 45-minute show. So curious your guys' thoughts on that and what your takeaways are for Money in the Bank. Why don't we start with the man in the storm so he can give some time to eat his food? What do you got, Ali?
How'd you call me out like that? That statistic honestly shocks me that there was only an hour and a half of wrestling in that show. I mean, maybe, I guess, considering the entrances, some of the promotional stuff and, the promo packages that they put on before the entrances. But I was thoroughly entertained the whole time. I really did enjoy it. It wasn't amazing. Honestly, probably like second worst PLE of the year behind Elimination Chamber. But overall, that's just surprising to me. An hour and a half of wrestling it was 3.5 hours because that thing ended at like 10:30, started at 7. That's really shocking. I was entertained thoroughly the whole time, though. Can't complain.
Well, I mean, if you divide it out, hour and a half of wrestling between 5 matches, that's 18 minutes a match. I mean, what more can you ask for? You want them all to go 20 or 30 matches? You want 6 or 7 matches? You want to include a tag team match that no one's really that enthused for?
You can't say that, but the over half of a show should be wrestling, should it not? On a wrestling pay-per-view,
wasn't it? That's basically half, right?
No. It was an hour and a half, and the show was 3:30 plus. So it was basically just below like 40% wrestling. I mean, I think that's a little ridiculous.
I only think it's a problem if you weren't entertained. Were you entertained?
I would say I am.
Yes, I was. I was.
You're-
That's a point by our guy Ali. Parthy, what's sticking out most to you a couple days after from Money in the Bank?
Well, the reignition of CM Punk and Seth Rollins feud as a sort of sidebar to the Punk and McIntyre feud, which is just continuing to pick up steam. It was interesting how they basically pulled Seth Rollins back into this, triad of hatred, so to speak. But Damian Priest comes out World Heavyweight Champion. That kind of surprised me because now he's set for his destination with Gunther at SummerSlam, which they're going to ride Damian Priest out for the rest of his title reign, which we perceive to end at SummerSlam. I'm not making presumptions about who everybody's picking, but yeah, so they're still sticking with Damian for the time being. Everybody's talking about, the waste of the Money in the Bank contract, but as you alluded to, Maniac, we've got Cody as the champion, WWE champion, and we've got Gunther as the champion, World Heavyweight champion, waiting in the wings. And we both I think we all expect them to have very long title reigns going possibly into WrestleMania and even past that. So what are you going to do? This Money in the Bank contract winner, whoever it is, whether McIntyre didn't cash in on the same night like he said he was going to, or whether you put it on, Jey Uso and make him the Eat in the Bank, or there weren't that many other credible future World Heavyweight champions for the time being. I mean, Chad Gable could be that in 1 or 2 years, but not at the moment, at least in my view. So it would have been another albatross around these guys' necks for them to constantly have these scenarios where they could cash it in, but then they don't. Like so many times we saw last year, Judgment Day standing over Seth Rollins, and we're all screaming at the screen, "Why aren't you cashing it in now?" And it just would have been a whole bunch of logic holes that they would have had to plug in. So really, the Money in the Bank is more of a heel device to get to a world title match, whereas the Royal Rumbles are more for the baby faces. And we had our heel, and he had his motivation, and he already cashed it in, and he called his shot. And the guy that he's feuding with called his shot, saying, he's never going to be champion as long as I can draw breath. So it makes perfect sense to me. We still have Tiffy in the bank as someone to carry around a briefcase and have that sort of a storyline continue. And she can easily cash it in and be a credible champion on either brand, whoever she chooses to cash it in on. So no problems with me as far as how they did Money in the Bank winners and how they're subsequently handling them in the aftermath. Cody getting pinned by Solo. Obviously, that's going to set up for SummerSlam if we all can see where that's going.
All right, Prophet, what you got? How you feeling on Money in the Bank?
Yes, to start off with the hour and a half of wrestling, I don't mind it too much. Like Ali said, if you're entertained, does it really feel like an hour and a half? No. You were entertained for the whole 3 hours, 30 minutes, if not all of it, most of it. Going into the men's Money in the Bank, I had no problem with it. Like Parthy was saying, Cody's obviously the champion, and we're all assuming most likely Gunther's going to win it at SummerSlam. You're not going to take, like Parthy said, you're not going to take the belt off of either of them right now, especially to a Money in the Bank winner. And then we saw, obviously, what happened all year with Priest, like Parthy said. Every time there was a champion down, that he's being clowned for, why is he not cashing in right now? Like, I mean, clearly it's a right possibility. They're not going to do that again for this year. And especially if it would last way past WrestleMania. So I think it was a good choice there. Obviously we have Tiffy in the bank on the screen. I think that was the best women's Money in the Bank match we've seen to date. Some of the moves that we're pulling off were better than some moves we've even seen in the men's Money in the Bank matches over the years. I mean, that move, the ending move from Chelsea Green into the table, oh my God. Like we haven't seen something like that in WWE ladder matches in a long time. And that is a dangerous move for anyone to do, especially if you saw some of the camera angles. There was a camera angle where the table was not lined up where I don't think it should have been. And Chelsea kind of had to like leap to behind her, which could have ended very, very dangerous. But that was a 6 out of 5. We're going with, good old Dave Meltzer. He probably gave it a 2, but it really probably was a 6 or a 7 in my book. And then Cody and Solo, I know we're going to have a lot of discussions on that over the next month. Is it the right move? I don't know, but we all know what's going to end up happening either during the match or after the match. But I am surprised that we didn't see either Jimmy or the debut of Hikuleo, or however you say his name, at Money in the Bank. I think we do see Jimmy on Friday, but that's a different story. But overall, I think it was a very successful event. Obviously, it wasn't one of the best of the year, but it was still a very good event.
I'll just kind of compliment what you guys have said, because a lot I agree with, obviously. Yeah, excited for Tiffy in the Bank for sure. With that said, yeah, surprised Solo win over Cody, but that's clearly the road they want to go. Love seeing what I'm seeing from Jacob Fatu. I'm surprised they didn't address the botch from Priest. I'm surprised that has Rollins said anything about the count or anything at all?
He did say, I can't do anything about a referee, making a mistake as far as, him being cost the match. So he made an allusion to that during his promo with Punk, but they haven't really addressed it head on. I guess there's no way they really can address it.
Triple H did during the presser. He basically was like, I can't speak on, he said, I'm going to answer as Triple H would answer, not Paul. And he said, I can't control what a ref is doing. I can't explain the actions of a referee, and we'll just leave it at that. But I was in those conversations we had about Money in the Bank. It really brought up an interesting question for me, which is, given the new World Heavyweight Championship has its own lineage, do you think Gunther holds the record for longest reign for two belts, not at the same time, but holds the record at the same time,
Yeah, that you're saying he could become the longest holder of both belts basically instantly?
At the same time, yeah.
How long?
Because eventually. Sorry, go ahead.
How long was Seth? Like 300 days?
It's from last year's King of the Ring, or what was supposed to be King of the Ring, to WrestleMania.
So it's probably about 300 days.
Yes, Seth was about 7 to 8 months. So yeah, like 250 days at least for sure. But
well,
yeah,
it's obviously going to get beaten.
I don't see him losing it quickly. Yeah, that's true.
Well, on the
point,
botch, on the botch pin and the count, I think Meltzer, and both Fightful as well, because Meltzer's credibility is kind of strained at this point. They both come out and said with their sources that Priest was essentially supposed to kick out, even though the lights seemed to come on in the background, indicating that they were supposed to hit McIntyre's music earlier than they should have.
And there was also a couple of videos that shown that Damian might have been knocked out in the middle of that.
Yeah, his hand was doing the thing that shows typically when you're knocked out, right? It was rock hard or whatever.
That also
Fatu? Tonga. Yeah, you're right. Or Tongaloa.
And that might have contributed
before
to
the botch
later on.
Yep, definitely. After seeing how knocked out he obviously was, I don't hold his botch against him at all. My goodness, the fact that he can be out there completing that match is enough. But we'll wrap up WWE real quick. We're talking some Raw, obviously, the biggest storyline being Rhea Ripley returning. So I want to kind of light speed this one. Let's go around the horn, starting with the Prophet and then go into Ali. What are you more excited about right now? Rhea Ripley being back or the eventual Gunther Damian Priest championship match? Prophet, what do you got?
I think it's got to be Rhea. I fully think that if it wasn't for Roman Reigns coming back, Liv Rhea could main event SummerSlam.
I think it's Rhea because her return is basically going to pour gasoline on this fire, on this smoldering fire. It's going to ignite it into a bonfire that is the Judgment Day, the tension and the rift within them. I think we're going to see a split at least before or not, if not by SummerSlam.
Although me and Liv are going to get married, she just doesn't know it yet. I'm so excited that Rhea's back. This is literally so exciting.
Seriously, it is very thrilling. It is almost as thrilling as a weekend at Batavia Downs. Get there and book now. Awesome hotel rooms opportunities and awesome performances. This Friday, we got Batavia, Rockin' at the Downs back again. So super excited about that. And of course, that means it's time for Trainwreck Trivia presented by Batavia Downs. So this is a new little one we got here, and we're going to go with it. For this SummerSlam, WWE made available the opportunity to sit in a suite with The Undertaker. So my question to all three of you is, what do you think the ticket cost is for a suite ticket?
$3,500
Stadium with The Undertaker. You get drinks as well.
It's $3,500.
My question is, why aren't we doing that? Second, 10,000.
It's 3,500. I know this.
I'll go in between, say 5,000.
So first off, when I checked it 2 months ago, it was $6,000 per person. When I
checked it like last weekend.
Initially released. When I checked it just today, it's $3,000 per person, which is kind of crazy because floor seats are basically $1,000 to $1,500. So for twice that, you could be sitting in a suite with the Undertaker. Pretty crazy.
Well, one thing about it is it doesn't specifically say that the Undertaker is going to be there the whole time. It says an appearance by the Undertaker. So that kind of
good note.
Yeah. I looked into it. As freakish as that might sound.
Look, in-suite Undertaker appearance. That does sound sketchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably there for about 45 minutes. All right, well, I'm glad we're not doing that then if he's only there. Take off the sunglasses.
Whoa.
Nothing to see there.
Hey, McAdoo, watch yourself before relieve you of your duties, just like the U.S. relieved Greg Bertol of their duties. You're next.
Wow, a lot being thrown around here, guys. So make sure you're throwing around your money at Batavia Down.
Batavia Down is more, lots more.
All right, guys, plain and simple. AEW in a little bit of a pickle. Numbers are down for sure. Again, I'm not like some people in the chat who are saying they're going to go out of business, very shortly or something crazy like that. I think that is crazy. But with that said, if you were Tony Khan, plain and simple, what's the move here to kind of get things going in the right direction? Because I'm interested to hear from you guys. I don't think booking is a problem at all.
I would say booking is a problem, but last week's show was not the problem. Last week's show was pretty coherent. Last week's show had a lot of matches that meant something going forward. A lot of storylines were forwarded. MJF has a interesting new angle for his new heel persona where he's bitter at the fans. He doesn't just look down on them. He's actually mad at them. And he has this mission to say that all your favorites are bad and I'm going to tear them down one by one. So it's giving him a little bit more of a purpose than just being an a-hole heel character. And it's going to be interesting how they forward that with most likely Ospreay and maybe Daniel Garcia once he gets back from his, being written off screen with an injury. You just got to keep making every match feel meaningful and not just randomly book, luchadors from CMLL with, New Japan guys coming over and make New Japan feel special. Don't just book them, every month or so. Keep, Forbidden Door forbidden, a little more forbidden. And I think I'm actually going to shock you here. I think card for match, card for card, I think All In might be a little bit stronger than SummerSlam, simply because WWE's two top championship matches. You've got Damian Priest, who people respect, who people like, but he's not exactly his box office as Seth Rollins might have been if they had opted to go that way. And Solo-Sokola's clearly got a hot angle going. He's got a lot of heat as this new head of the table persona with all these, killers around him as the commentary's putting over as, but he's not quite box out. He's not nearly as box office as either Cody or Roman, whose return we anticipate. So I think the championship match that I'm penciling in with, which is going to be Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland with all their storyline and their history, and going up and down the card where you've got Britt Baker versus Mercedes Moné, Toni Storm possibly versus Mariah May. There's just a lot of history and a lot of good storytelling that is going to finally come into focus as they build it into All In comes into play. They just got to stay on all these stories and just make every match count on Dynamite and Collision going forward. As far as Collision goes, I don't know why they don't just put it at 605 like they did with the old WCW Saturday night shows. At least when WWE has a PLE for them to go against, because it's killing them in the ratings every time they do it.
Yeah. I mean, the 8 o'clock Saturday spot is just tough. What do you got, Prophet?
Yeah, I don't really know what he can do. I think the production wise of AEW right now is at the best it's been in a few years, probably since 2021. I just think that if it's just because of how hot WWE is. If you're not a huge fan of professional wrestling, you're not going to spend your Monday nights, maybe your Tuesday nights with NXT, your Wednesday nights with Dynamite, Thursday maybe TNA, I don't know, but then Friday nights with SmackDown. You're not going to want to watch Rampage after watching SmackDown. And then Saturdays, we were just discussing it, 8:00 shows on a Saturday is just outrageous for any time of the year. I think this is what they're going to have to settle at for now, even with the production. I don't think they're going to gain much with how hot WWE is, and even with how hot they are right now. How much better can AEW really get?
Yeah, and I would say if I was AEW right now, I think you guys both made a good point that AEW is a good quality show right now. I mean, especially Dynamite, for sure. I have not had my eyes as much on Collision as I should, obviously, but tonight we got, obviously, Bryan Danielson and Hangman Page. That's probably one of the most classic feuds in AEW history, given the fact that this is going to be their 4th match, right? So, obviously, momentum building there. And I think AEW really can only stay the course. You made a good point, Bart. You can't, right now especially, you can't be running out a random unnamed, like unpromoted luchador. If you're bringing somebody on new to Dynamite, they need a video package the week before. They need stuff on social media, teasing them. You need to be building them up. You cannot be running anybody out right now, random to the crowd. And you need to be really focusing on your core guys. If you got to give MJF 5 extra minutes in a segment and you got to cut down every other segment so you could do that, then that's what you got to do right now, because that's going to make the product better and that's going to help in the short term, and you'll get over it in the long term with the good product. But speaking of good product, we got our WWE Mark Ali, and he says we've got some plans.
Well, so like you said, the product itself is good. I went to the AEW show, and I'm not a regular watcher, and I enjoyed myself thoroughly. That was a really fun show, good wrestling, good storylines. I think what they need is a switch up, and I hear a lot of people calling for this. I think Tony needs to find someone to lead the company that's not Tony Khan. I think that's a hot take, so I want to hear your guys' opinions on it.
Well, he said this before in reports that if anything were to happen to him where he's incapacitated, he basically wants his father to pass the responsibility to Bryan Danielson, who's basically heading into retirement. That's his number one guy, if he trusts anyone to run it. The problem is, this is Tony Khan's, fantasy. Like, we all wanted to fantasy book when we were 15 years old, growing up watching WWF Raw. And why would he give that over to anybody else if he's having so much fun with it, which is essentially what's keeping AEW afloat for the time being, before, as leading up to whatever TV package rights deal that they can get, and however profitable, if at all, it can make them. It's basically Tony Khan playing with his toys and having fun with it. And as long as he's having fun with it, he'll just keep pumping money into it. But as long as he's having fun with it, whether the majority of the wrestling fan audience thinks it's a good product or an interesting enough product to tune in, what reason does he have to turn it over to anybody else?
Yeah.
Three notes real quick on Tony Khan, and I'll let you get the last word in, Prophet. I think everything was going well with the notebook he had until basically shit went sideways with the roster in 2021. I think everything was going, 2022 for sure. I think everything was going good. Now we're at the show, a couple weeks ago, and he comes out 2 to 3 separate times just ranting about time cop. I could have definitely done without the time cop rants. He was kind of actually taking momentum out of it. He asked Justin Roberts how long until live, about 5 times over a 2-minute span. So again, it's very little simple things. I would send out someone with more charisma. Where's Christopher Daniels? He's supposed to be our GM, right? He's supposed to be the one with the charisma. I'd rather hear from him to start the show than Tony Khan. And that's all due respect. It was nice, the first time I went to AEW in 2021 and Tony was coming out and getting the crowd razzed. But I'm not for that anymore. Rob, what do you got last word on Tony and AEW?
Yeah, so before answering the Tony question, I just want to add to what Maniac was saying about the things you can't do. You definitely can have a wrestler perform on your show, and then in the same week or the week after go sign with WWE. It's not such a great look. For the Tony Khan, I do think eventually he will have to hand it to someone else. Let him be the boss, but let someone else be the head content guy, because if you're not, if you're not a lifelong wrestling guy, you're not going to be able to have all these ideas flowing with anything to go with, because you're not going to redo stuff that quickly. Obviously, WWE redoes stuff, especially lately, but it's from years ago. For AEW, I think eventually he will have to hand the content part of it to someone else. But for now, it's doing good. So why change it?
Well, Rob, you alluded to Stephanie Vaquer's signing with WWE after being featured at Forbidden Door versus Mercedes Moné. I think that's a little bit of an egg on AEW's face, basically being an advertisement for the next for the talents of WWE's women's division. On the other hand, on the other side of that match, Mercedes Moné's creative control, anytime she can basically say that doesn't work for me, sister. Do you guys see that as a problem going forward?
Could be.
I think the worst thing you could possibly have is someone booking the show who is in the show. Keep those things as far away as possible. Otherwise, you're going to end up with, that's not going to work for me, brother. And it's just not a good situation to have. I mean, you look at a character like Vince, even at the end when he was booking himself poorly, it didn't add anything to the show. And it made it seem cringy. And I fear that that's going to happen. Tony said he'd never show up on screen as some kind of authority figure. We're seeing kind of hints towards maybe that not being the case as much. And I think that you can't have these EVPs. You can't have people with creative control. There's got to be one person who's got a mind for the business, who's making the decisions, that is not involved with on screen.
I disagree and agree. I agree that long term it's not a great idea, but in short term, look what Roman, obviously he had Heyman as well, but look what those two just did for this whole bloodline story. There was reports that they were creating most of that. Look at what they just did. So for a short term part of it, yes, I think it's fine, but if she continues to be it, it's just going to go downhill.
Well, I think input from the talent is fine, but the final decision.
In this AEW situation of people in Sabres fans continually asking the Pagula to appoint like a hockey person as director of hockey operations, and he keeps wanting to keep it for himself. We want Tony Khan to appoint a director of wrestling booking, and he just wants to keep doing it for himself.
Only I give you slight leverage in that one, but what you would need to have happen to make it an equal situation is that like the Sabres made the Eastern Conference Finals in like 2015 or something. Like there was some aberration that them being in charge was actually a good thing versus just straight playoff drop. Because in 2021, AEW was fucking. Like nobody doubts that. Everyone agrees with that. But
I want to say I think the problems began where Tony had his first four world champions planned out, and he had nothing planned out after that. After basically Hangman Adam Page completed his story and won the title, and he had more, he had Bryan Danielson and CM Punk and Adam Cole to play with, but he didn't, now that all those guys came into play, he didn't have whatever vision he might have had past that, if he had one at all. And those guys coming in, it's a good problem to have more talent, more top-end talent to book, but once they either started getting injured or their problems started arising, as we know, he didn't know how to pivot from that.
Okay, real quick round the horn because we do have to put a time. We got to get moving here. Joe Hendry, what a week. Obviously gets the closing shot on NXT. Heatwave gets the main event spot. So I am literally, all right, Ali, I am going to go around to all three of you, and I want you to answer one question simply and shortly in about 20 to 30 seconds. What is Joe Hendry's ceiling, and where will he be 1 year from now? Ali, why don't you start us off since Rob, I know he's your boy. I'll save you for the main event.
I believe in Joe Hendry. Whoa, voice died there. But I actually think that he's probably not going to be out of NXT in a year. He's probably, I could see him being NXT champion. I think he can do a lot of big things in WWE. I just don't think he's going to work up, that quickly. We got guys like Trick Williams still there. We got guys like Obafemi. I don't think we're going to see him surpass them by any means. I think he's got at least a year in NXT.
Man,
I think we could see him as NXT champion within a year of joining NXT. I mean, look, they just belted Ethan Page within like 6 weeks or so. And I mean, he's very much more polished on the microphone in the ring. People are saying that Joe Hendry is maybe average in the ring, but as we know in WWE, that means not as much. Obviously, they're going to use NXT to get his wrestling acumen up to what their standards and levels of being an in-ring performer are. But as long as he knows how to market himself, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, he does these, rock concert-like things in the ring where he's talking trash to his opponents while playing a guitar and singing these songs, very reminiscent of our boy Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. As long as you can market yourself, as long as you have charisma, the in-ring, wrestling can come later, and that's what this machine, as Ethan Page described in NXT, is supposed to help you do, is get your wrestling up to where they can really sell you as a credible champion. But I can definitely see Joe Hendry, not too long after he joins NXT, as being an NXT champion, and definitely main roster worthy. World champion one day, it all depends on how his in-ring progresses.
I thought you were gonna say running around trash talking opponents with the guitar like our guy Elias. May he R.I.P. Rob, what do you got for Henry?
Yeah, I mean, first, I believe. Second, I think it really all depends when his TNA contract is up. We know when Jordan Grace's contract's up, and she's definitely coming to WWE. I'm gonna assume Joe Hendry's right behind her whenever his contract's up. But for now, they're gonna feature him, even as with their TNA agreement. He's gonna be out multiple times. If you say his name, he's showing up. But I do think he gets the title shot against Ethan Page. I don't think he wins yet, obviously, because he's not going to be a superstar, a WWE superstar yet. But I do think whenever that contract's up, he will be shortly arriving in WWE. And with his marketing, he can go anywhere. I mean, I don't think he's ever really going to, unless the wrestling increases, I don't think he's ever going to be a world champion, but he could definitely compete for a mid-card with his marketing-wise.
Okay, I like that. You believe in Joe Hendry. With that said, we were going to talk the SummerSlam card, but I'm going to shove that because we got weeks to get into it with that. Let's talk, obviously, the main story across entertainment from this weekend. Cena set to retire. So obviously, there's a lot of little caveats. So it sounds like this is going to be like his last kayfabe run up to WrestleMania is really what he's saying, with an in-ring WrestleMania match. Sounds very possible that he'll be coming back for one-offs, in my opinion. But I'm curious on your guys' thoughts, and I'm curious on what you're thinking from the weekend, as far as Cena's concerned, the C Nation.
Yeah. Well, first, so it's not going to be over at WrestleMania. The whole year is the Cena 2025. He's going to appear about 30 to 40 times in 2025. That's first. Obviously, I think we all knew it was coming. He's been saying it for the last few years that the time is running out. We didn't think it was going to happen, right? We didn't think he was going to show up at Money in the Bank and announce that next year was his last year. But some dream matches, maybe not dream because we've seen it already, but we want to see it again. I want to see, obviously, Punk and Cena in the ring again, possibly once in a lifetime, more like about 4 times in a lifetime now. John Cena versus The Rock. And then obviously what we all want to know, I don't know if it's going to be possible with Cody, unless they might have to switch Cody's WrestleMania opponent up. But I mean, I think we have to see Cena versus Randy at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I've heard some different booking options for all those names. I would include some of the up and comers like Gunther, like Braun Breaker, like Chad Gable even. But yeah, the way you got to parse out all these dream matches or rematches, I've heard a good suggestion. Why don't we kick off Netflix with Cena versus Punk? You don't really need a build up to that. It sells itself, and it would really kick off the Netflix era of Raw with a bang, I would say. Unless Cody has The Rock penciled in for WrestleMania, you can definitely do. Well, Cody could either have The Rock or he can have Randy Orton, because either of those are going to be blockbuster matches. Have his WrestleMania one-on-one match with John Cena that he never had. They were in a triple threat, I think, with Triple H at one time, but they never had a one-on-one match at WrestleMania. So that would be a good place to do that if they're both free and they don't have better plans in store for them. I would say I heard that there were some 3 or 4 NBC specials that WWE signed on for, separate from, SmackDown on USA. I would have a special centered around John Cena's last match at the end of 2025, not unlike they centered a whole pay-per-view around Ric Flair's last match, although I expect this one to come off a lot better. And I would have Cody wrestle Cena in his last match of 2025, in his last match of his last run. Whether Cody has the championship or not, that will be the ultimate passing of the torch from one face of the company to the next.
And before Ali goes, You don't think we see Roman Rock this year at Mania?
It all depends on where they want to go, how they want to mix and match all these different pieces that can all go together.
This is gonna sound crazy, but Roman Rock should just do a cinematic match. I know that everyone wants to see it live and everything, but it would actually be the best quality.
Like Cena versus
and they can do one on like the hill of like a Samoan village.
I was gonna say on the island of Samoa, yes.
Like I'm saying, they could literally go like nuts. And what is most important, and what The Rock actually cares about, is that he can make sure he looks good in every shot and that everything's fair and everything. It'll be a good quality match. I mean, we saw with AJ Undertaker, cinematic matches, fuck. They're absolutely awesome when WWE gets all its time to edit and everything like that. I really think Rock Roman Reigns would be best as a virtual match. I know they want to sell out a stadium, I'm sure, but like sell it for like a part of a PLE that you have to pay for on the streaming service or something.
Well, back to the Cena thing. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I am literally the biggest John Cena fan. I got his haircut. I literally got broken up with in seventh. Yes, I got broken up with in 7th grade because I came to school dressed as him. I am the biggest John Cena fan in the world. The fact that he came out and said he was going to be done literally shattered my heart. With the main thing that I want to see him do before he leaves is get that mother frickin' 17. He needs to get that 17th belt. He needs to take Ric Flair's name out of the books and solidify his right there to only maybe be dethroned by Randy. Obviously, a Randy Cena WrestleMania match has been discussed in this panel, and I would love to see that. Want to see Cena and Punk. And I never even considered this, but I think Partham, the head of the table over here, had the best idea, which was having Cody, go over on Cena for Cena's last match as the true passing of the torch moment. It's enough to make a grown man cry, man. I almost was crying at Money in the Bank until he announced he was going to be doing, a bunch of other shows. I thought he was just going to come out and be like, I'm injured, I can't do it. And I was almost in tears.
You know what? Thank you for bringing up the chase for 17, because that's going to be a interesting aspect of Cena's final run. Whether they'll give it to him or not, whether he probably won't ask for it, but they might just give it to him like Tony Khan gave Sting the final run with the tag titles and going out on top, even though Sting didn't necessarily want to do it. But Tony Khan insisted just to give Sting that rub and a hero's departure. The other storyline that we have to consider: Cena hasn't won a televised singles match in quite a while, and that was the storyline going into his match with Solo-Sikoa. So I think you have to play that out in the start of his final. I think you do, Ali. Do you disagree?
I think we need a dominant Super Cena one last time. If we really want to do this in the most special way possible, make him so good that people start hating him again. So we get those "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks" chants back in the arena, or make him even make him a Hollywood Hogan-esque character for all I care. But you make him dominant.
At this point, the heel turn is too late. I don't think.
I know.
Now, do you think for throughout the year, do we see the different personas of John Cena?
That'd be cool.
He'll definitely bring back Thugonomics.
Yeah.
At least once.
Yeah, I can't wait to see NWO John Cena.
Well, the only reason I said that is just make him dominant. Do whatever you have to do to make him dominant. I don't think they're going to go that direction.
Over that hump of finally getting a singles win that he hasn't had for a while.
If you can't already see Cody Rhodes cutting some promo, being like, I wanted my reign to be historic, and if I stood in the way of somebody else's history, well, that wouldn't be right. Come on out here, John Cena, and Cody's just straight up gonna give him a shot for sure. And then there's gonna be a huge angle about it, everything like that. There might be maybe a Cena gets screwed, like he gets a 3 count on Cody, but the ref's not there or something like that, and maybe there's some controversy. I don't know. I don't know what they ultimately do with it, but that is definitely interesting. The chase for 17. Any final thoughts before we sign off here, boys?
3 short weeks till the biggest part of the summer. Let's do it.
Let's
Dynamite
go.
looks
3
pretty
weeks.
good from top to bottom. Good promos and good meaningful matches that are going to help shape All In. So I'm looking forward to tonight.
Seriously. And shout out to our guy Ali and Masha in Rochester. Thank you for tuning along. Make sure you go check out Batavia Downs, because this is the show where it's not about wrestling with your conscience. It's not about wrestling with your budget. It is wrestling with emotion.
Yeet.
Scissor me, Parthy.